Hey everyone, welcome to episode 41 of the Friers podcast. In this episode, we talk to a good friend of mine, David Miller. David Miller is the owner of Miller's Fish and Chips in Haxby. I've known David for nearly 10 years, and as you'll hear, he's been a customer for the most part. On top of that, he's been an even better friend. I found this episode interesting because, if I'm honest, as long as I've known David, I didn't quite know the extent of all his health issues when he was a bit younger and how he overcame them and how he still overcomes them today. One thing I find really amazing about David is his love for his family. It really does drive him forward, and you can tell about how emotional he gets towards the end of the podcast. David is really passionate about fish and chips, but even more so, he's really passionate about training people to make great fish and chips. So if you're listening to this episode and fancy being taught by David or any of the other trainers at the NFFF School, just get in touch with the National Federation of Fish Friers and they'll hook you up. Excuse the pun. For those of you that don't know about who pays for the Friers podcast, then head over to worldoffriers.com. We've been updating our blogs, episode articles, updating our recipes for the fish cake mix and so on. And recently we just posted a full roundup of the Fish and Chip Awards. It's a one-stop article to see who is in what category. I hope you enjoy this episode and be sure to share it with people in the industry. Enjoy. David Miller, welcome to the Friers podcast. How are you today?
I'm brilliant.
Oh, I'm here with you. You love it when I'm here.
I do. I like you very much. You always make me laugh.
I have that effect on people. I'm not sure if they're laughing with me or at me yet. We'll figure it out in time. David Miller, for those that don't know you, I just want to do a brief introduction. You are David Miller of Millers of Haxby. You're the owner. We first met in 2010 when you reached out to me. And I came to see you when I was travelling. You're a previous Fish and Chips of the Year winner, and you're also the current trainer. Is it head trainer or just trainer?
Well, I'd just like to say one of the lead trainers. Okay. Yeah, one of the lead trainers.
At the NFFF School. Back in 2010, how did you hear about me?
Well, I saw you in one of the adverts. It could have been the Fish Friers Review or one of the magazines that were out. And I remember you had the batter company then. And you were doing a Yorkshire batter. And I just thought, that's interesting. I wonder what that is. And I remember just getting a bag in and having a go with it. And I liked it I think I used it for about nearly 8 months and then for some reason came off it. And my memory's not that good to remember.
Well, I know, and now you're on the natural. You've just
I'm on the natural now, yeah.
And au naturel. So, I wanted to do this for a while. We've been doing the podcast now for about a year. You've listened to a few. You get the idea of what they are.
I do.
I know before that you were a bit like, what's a podcast? And how do I use this thing? And I had to show you how to do it. But you got there in the end, didn't you?
I think you're doing a great job with it.
Well,
I mean, what episode is this?
This is 41.
That's fantastic still, isn't it?
It is.
I saw you had somebody from the Glenfiddich, was it?
Yeah, Glenfiddich, yeah.
That was good.
It was good, yeah.
That was really good, yeah. But I just brilliant. I mean, the characters you've had on, not just in our fish and chip industry as well, but in other people out there, it's brilliant what you've done.
I think the idea is that we can learn from others, can't we?
You can never stop learning.
I think that the more we can sort of talk to people in similar industries to ours, and how they overcome certain situations, just makes ours stronger.
But don't you think things have changed as well, that people are so more open to talking to people?
I think so.
I remember, fish and chip shop days when, let's go 20 years ago, if there was somebody in the room who had another fish shop, you'd go to the other side of the room.
Yeah.
It was all that.
Weird,
it was like a barrier thing, wasn't it?
I think people realise that even if you help, it doesn't hurt yourself. Like, for example, when you talk to the guys at Glenfiddich, they help other distillers, and they don't worry about what happens at the sales side.
Absolutely.
Everything just falls out in between. And I think, and you see that with a lot of restaurants and chefs. They'll help each other. And,
it's one of my key sayings, I think. I remember Nick, you said to me when we first started the journey with Nick and people used to come and see the shop, and you maybe tell them a little thing that we found out or something. They say, why have you told them that, Dad? And I go, well, it's no threat, Nick, is it? We can show them, you can tell them, you can do them, but what I can't give them is my heart and my passion.
Yeah.
So then it's never a threat, is it? And I believe if you've got that, Why not share?
And even from a technical point of view, I see it somewhere. Like, I see it sometimes when someone will say to me, well, if you supply me, you can't supply the chap down the road. And I'm just like, look, I'm not getting involved in that game. Everyone's got the right to use any product, whether it's mine or competitors or whatever. However, I've seen it where two shops, literally a mile away from each other, they use the same batter. But once you then get into it, they use different fish, they use different oil, or at least the oil's a different state. They use different frying range,
different temperatures.
And there's so many things, variables. Like, so it's not as clear cut as saying we have the same batter or we have the same fish cake mix and so on. And that was, that happens a lot with the fish cake mix. Well, I really want it. Don't give it anybody else. It's our thing. And I'm like, I can't. That's my job. My job is to give it to as many people as possible. But even when people follow the recipe, David, they still get it different.
Yeah, of course they do.
So I think that we should probably embrace each other and help each other where we can. Obviously,
absolutely.
Don't give all the crown jewels, but and also help people so they can make their own decision as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So but 2010. I tell you, that's what? How many years? 10 years.
10 years. Lovely.
Yeah, it's our anniversary in April. Yeah. I found the email from April.
Did you?
April 2010.
God,
30th.
I was using emails then.
Yeah, you was. Yeah. So what I'd like to know, because although I've known you this long, I think, and like many people, we all don't know how you got into the industry.
Okay.
So tell us a little bit about the family history.
Well, it's quite a big one, really, Stel.
Okay,
how do we start?
Condense it.
Yeah. Okay. So, fish and chips has looked after me fantastically. My father was in fish and chips, so let me tell you a little bit about my dad.
Brilliant.
So he used to work for his father, which was a farmer, and old Joe was a landowner as well, and had property in fish and chips. And then Dad actually left Joe because they didn't get on, and he wasn't very kind to my dad. So Jim, that's my father, decided to go on his own, and he literally started off with a van selling groceries around the villages around York. Mm-hmm. It was a mobile van. And from there he grew, and then he had a market stall, became a fishmonger, and that market stall is still there this day in York Market. And then got into poultry. He was a poultry farmer. And then he actually bought a shop in Heslington Road, which is a suburb in York. And he bought a fish and chip shop. And he probably got the idea from his granddad, or maybe his own idea. I never actually got to ask him that, because fortunately my dad died when he was 64. Oh, wow. He basically worked in the shop for about 2 or 3 weeks, got the batter right, got the chips right, and then him and Mum, that's my mum Jean, they opened the shop up on bonfire night in I think it was 1966, something like that, and they got ready for bonfire night. They opened at 4 o'clock, and by 7 they'd sold out of everything. Wow. And then when Mum had done the ready reckoning that night, they realised they'd made more money in one night than they had standing in the freezing cold in York Market. And that's how it all started. So eventually Dad grew from 1 shop to 7 shops in York.
A little entrepreneur.
Yeah. So obviously he gave us a great life. And I was very fortunate to be sent to good schooling. I went to schools in York. And I looked at sort of maybe fish and chips a bit different. I just thought, well, I don't really want to do that. I won't say I looked at it was beneath me, but I just didn't want to go into that.
Do you think that's the way do you think that's because your parents brought you up to not want to be involved in it, or at least they wanted better for you in some ways?
Possibly, yeah, possibly. And I suppose maybe the schooling had a bit of influence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course.
Because at that time, the private school I went to, it was mainly grocers, greengrocers. They were all. It's not like public school now. Private school now, which is very corporate. This was like they were all from farmers from the Holderness area, and they were all greengrocers or shopkeepers from Manchester, Leeds, that area, trying to do the best for the kids, I suppose. So we all had a similar outlook on life. We were all hard-working dads. My dad never came to see me anything in school. Too busy working, and so a lot of my mates they were too busy working, and. I suppose I just didn't want that life. But then I for some reason, started to think, well, what should I do? I was pretty crap at school, really. I have a joke with the girls in the office at the NFFF going, all that money they spent on education, I can hardly read. Well, I can read, but could hardly write, Yeah. But I think what it gave me was maybe a good outlook on life, I don't know. What it really gave me was an ethic to work, I suppose. a real ethic to work, and I wanted to work, and for some reason I got hankering to go into hotel management. And at that time, like also, some of the stars were superstars, weren't there? You know, with just Lascari Rhodes and people like that, but there was a lot of people to look up to. I remember at that time I was going into it, Marco Pierre working at the Box Tree, you know, places like that. There was, you know, quite a lot of superstar chefs out there, and there still are to this day. But at that time, Trust House 40s, which was obviously run by Rocco, was a massive company, and they had a training scheme going for hotel management. And at that point, you went into bar, kitchen, housekeeping, reception, obviously office, and then sort of back on the shop floor again. And it was a 4-year apprenticeship, and I just thought, that's just for me. And my first job was to be put in the kitchen, and I just loved it. And I actually became Silvano, who's still got restaurants in York now, Italian from Sardinia. I was his commis chef, and I worked with him tirelessly to working with him, and I learnt a lot of him, and I learnt him how to work and everything. And I was on a one-day release to college doing 706-1 and 706-2, which was Cities and Guilds then. And at that time, it was a 4-year apprenticeship. And what happened was the college actually brought a course out, a 2-year course of complete catering. And you did restaurant, bar, housekeeping, plus chefing. And you got 706-1-2 plus housekeeping and bar certificate in 2 years. And because I could be supported at home, I realised if I left the chefing and went to catering full time, I beat the system by a year.
Okay.
And that's what I did.
So do you think that gave you a little bit of an advantage then?
Very much so, because when I got best student both year run-ins, and I got distinctions as well. Yeah. So because doing that year's practical just gave me a bit of, and I had maybe a year and a half more in life than the people there. So it was great, and that was my springboard really. Once I'd got that, then I went into the world, and I started to look for jobs, and I started to look abroad. And at that time, Jersey was a hotbed of place to go work.
Okay.
And I was trying to get into Jersey, and I went down to London to the agency, and they said, no, we've got nothing for Jersey, but we've got something going on in Switzerland if you fancy it. Would you like to put your name forward? So I put my name forward. It was basically a stagiaire chef, which is like a student chef. So it was going well below like a commis chef. It was even below that. And I ended up working I got picked for a job at the Richemont Hotel in Geneva. And they had a Michelin star restaurant called the Jardin. And that was actually run by one of Paul Bacuse's second chefs. So it was a fantastic experience, and I got the job. Not very much money, enough to live on, but a great experience. So I worked in the garde-manger there, which is the larder. I was taught aspic work, and I specialised in aspic work by the end of it. So that's the old way of dressing your salmons up, and aspic work, which is quite old-fashioned now. But you don't see it much, but it was heyday then.
Do you rock those skills out at Christmas then when you do these salmon?
Well, like a pate, just put some flowers on it. And yeah. I don't do them anymore, but I used to do. So it was really, really good, you know. But that was a hard kitchen. God, that was hard. I remember the chefs were all French, and they were hard people to work for. And of course, you were English, and there was lots of like English French sort of camaraderie, and also like bullying in a way. But the head chef, the executive chefs, you couldn't even look him in the eye. You looked at the top of his hat or his chin. You never dared look him in his eye. And I remember if you were on the sauces cooking something, he would be on the pass. Just you'd put the dish down, and he would plate it up and send it out. And he had 2 bins next to him. Okay, one was just for dirty pans, and one was for another one, and that was the one with food and the pans in. And you'd take it up and go, here, chef. He'd look at it, he'd taste it, and he'd either serve it or it'd go in the bin. And you'd have to walk back through the kitchen,
walk of shame,
with everybody applauding you like that.
Oh God!
And they have to redo it. Yeah. And even if it was good, I still think he just put the odd one in there just to keep
you in your place.
Yeah. And so that gave me a real sort of taste of what it was like to work in a high-end kitchen.
Do you think you probably, in some ways, did have like maybe a chip on your shoulder a little bit in your younger days? Because obviously you got distinctions at school.
I thought I was maybe very, very good. Yeah,
the dog's nuts. And he's like,
and it just brought me down very quickly. Though.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah,
and I am a very humble person, but I think in life it's nice to have a confidence. I think you've got to have a confidence in whatever you do. But it certainly rocked me for a bit. And then I managed to climb myself out of that and became quite well respected, even though I was a stagiaire.
Yeah, where did you sort of go after that then?
So after that, it was back home because I couldn't get a job anywhere. I was trying to get another job in Switzerland, and at that time there was nothing going. And I thought, at that time it was one of the leading hotels of the world chain. So it was a good place to work. And I just thought, I'm going to be able to get a job, no problem. But it was a struggle because I think there was things going on in the economic climate that there weren't many jobs going. So I actually came back and worked for Dad for a bit, which was difficult because I'd come back from this high-end chefing back to fish and chips and trying to bring all this, what I'd learnt there into that. And it just didn't make sense because they've got money to burn.
Yeah.
We haven't.
Were you doing like quenelle mushy peas?
Trying to do all sorts of daft things,
No, I get that. So, and you're still young. So at that point, did you sort of begrudge it?
I was 22.
Yeah. So you're sort of like, I'm a chef. What am I doing here?
What am I doing here? Yeah.
Okay.
And it became part of life, and I was actually working away, and it was okay. And that night, actually, Leslie came. My Leslie came into my life, which is my wife now, Leslie Miller. And
was her name always Leslie Miller?
Oh no, Leslie. It was Leslie Roberts before, but she actually. A lot of people don't know that, but she actually used to work for my dad when she was a teenager. So I've known Leslie in the village many, many years, and for us to get together is quite good, really. And anyone meets Leslie, she'll tell the story about that because she just thought, when he grows up, he'll be okay one day. That's what she always said.
She's still waiting.
I think so, yeah. But we got on really well, and. It was great, really, but it was Leslie's fault, really, because she actually saw. She knew I maybe wasn't totally happy at working with Dad, and I was just going along with it. And as you know, time passes quick sometimes, isn't it? And I'd been out of the trade for maybe a year and a half, and Leslie saw the QE2 was interviewing for new chefs, and basically what the QE2 had done, had come into Bremerhaven for a complete new refit, and they were actually taking on chefs from 5-star hotel background rather than merchandisey chefs to give it a different flavour. So I remember Leslie seeing this interview, and she told me in a nightclub, when we were in a nightclub, she said, I've seen this interview. They're interviewing at the Queen's Hotel in Leeds on Thursday. I said, shall I go for it? She said, yeah, why don't you go? So I went over, suit, jacket, went for the interview. And when I got there, there's all these people from Gleneagles, so many people there. From different hotels, all cracking chefs. And obviously I said, well, this is what I've done, What else have you done? Well, I went back to my dad's fish and chip shop. All right. So you've already done like 4 years chefing, yeah? And you've been out of it, what, a year, 2 years? Yeah. Okay. And I just thought, that's it, finished. So I went back home, never thought any more about it. 4 weeks later, remember it, after Thursday lunchtime, 1 o'clock, got a phone call from Cunard. There's a position coming up on the ship. Can you join it on Monday? Oh, right. Can I ring you back? No, we need a decision to now, or we move on to the next one.
Oh, really?
It's entirely up to you.
That's brutal, isn't it?
Yeah. And I said, yeah.
You said, yeah. So I guess at this point, your dad didn't even know you'd gone for an interview.
Yeah, he did. He knew I'd gone for an
right.
interview. So I basically went home, called my brother, who was also in the business then. I'll talk about him a bit later. He was my brother running the York side of the business. I was running the Haxby side. And I just said, they've asked me to join the QE2. He said, you can't not miss that, David. You can't not miss that. So I finished work on the Saturday, packed my bags, and off I went.
So your brother was supportive?
Very much so.
Well, how was your dad feeling, do you think?
I think he was very proud. He was very, very proud. And so was my mum, and they knew it was a decision I could not take.
Yeah.
Obviously, it was going to leave them in the lurch, but they said the business will be fine.
So it's probably like bittersweet, mixed feelings.
Yeah, I think so, maybe. But he was ever so proud once we got on there. I remember people saying, your dad's so proud you're on that ship. And that's how it started, really.
And how long were you on the ship for?
Just over a year.
Okay.
With time off as well.
Yeah.
So that was great. I mean, I started off in the... I went on board and I was put in the sort of officer's mess to start with. And then I think somebody spotted my talents and I moved up and I ended up running the soup section, then ended up running the sauce section, then I ended up working in the Queen's Grill, which is like one of the premier restaurants. And that was fantastic. So, and I worked in a small brigade of about 8 chefs in the grill.
So you feel like you learnt a lot in a year?
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
Tremendous chefs. They're all superb chefs. I mean, some have been... I mean, Sean Connolly, who was my roommate, and at that time... Believe it or not, I was actually going to Huddersfield College to do 7063. And again, if I can talk about that later, so if you can remind me.
Yeah.
He shared a cabin with him. He's now a bit like equivalent of Gordon Ramsay in Australia. He's got restaurants in Dubai, Wellington, Auckland, Sydney.
Wow.
Top chef. And we shared a room together. And we were at college together. And out of all the people, anyone who's in catering says, "Oh, I'll stay in touch.
Oh, you never do.
You never do. Those guys I met on that ship. There's Aidan Rice, Jimmy. He runs the hotel. He's the food and beverage manager for the hotel, the Versace one they use for celebrities to get me out of here.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And these people, that I've stayed in touch with them. I haven't seen them for many years, but we send the odd email, and it's nice to know that we're still there. And they follow us as well on Facebook and all that, so they're in touch with what I'm doing, so it's good.
Nice.
Yeah.
So then, a year later, what makes you then, think about leaving that career and coming back?
Okay. Mum and Dad
Okay.
came on board the QE2 for 6 weeks.
Wow, okay.
They joined in Hawaii and left in New York.
Did you know? Was this a surprise?
Yeah, I knew they were coming.
Right, okay.
I knew they were coming. But it was a bit like, well, they're coming on the QE2 on the world tour for 6 weeks. What am I gonna tell the people I work with?
Yeah.
Because it was quite a hard kitchen, If you couldn't pull 2, if you couldn't turn 2, you were off. There was no messing about. It's very run very rigidly, and if you can't work, you say, where's Eric gone? Oh, he's gone. They'll let him go, and that's it. You're just off at the next port.
I'm about to say, where'd they drop off?
The next port,
right,
then
really?
you've got to get yourself home.
Oh, wow.
You get your dollars and you're on your way.
Brutal.
Brutal.
Yeah.
But
Talk about licking your wounds.
That's the way it is. Yeah, that's the way it is. And so they came on board, and it was fantastic. So I told a few people, but not many, because I thought I've got to keep this quiet because this is a bit embarrassing. So I went to see the skipper. I had the captain. I had permission to see him, and said, "Look, can I have permission to come on board? Because you're not allowed out of decks on decks." My mum and dad, and so I got special permission to be able to go on board. And my friend Sean Connolly also got on board because we said somebody who my mum and dad had met was his auntie. So every night we used to finish work, then go and hobnob in the halls watching the croupiers work and all that. And we were up there. They go, "I thought you were a chef." Yeah. What are you doing up here? And I remember we were in Hong Kong and we had a load of soups made for mum and dad coming on board. That's the time you go to Hong Kong and get a soup made in 8 hours. Brilliant, wow. Brilliant. And basically they were on board and everybody looked after them fantastic. And everybody got to know them eventually. And they used to join us in the crew bar. And Dad was a real character, and everybody loved him. And they got looked after like kings and queens. Nothing was too much trouble for them. And they got extra bottles of wine, caviar, and you name it. Anyway, towards the end of the tour, them leaving, and I got a call from my chef, Christy, and he said, "Come and join me, David. I need to speak to you." And he said, "Take your hat off, sit down." Well, anyone that went in the executive shop and took the hat off meant that...
Oh, you thought you were getting dropped off at the port.
It was time to go. So he said, what are you doing? Tell me what you're playing at. Well, what's going on? I said, "What do you mean, chef?" And I'm looking at him like you, like almost like thinking, "Oh my God." So I confessed to all these bottles of wine I'd given them, all these extra lobsters and stuff like that. He said, "I'm not interested in all that."
Yeah.
He said, "I've had lunch with your mum and dad today, and all they want you to do is to come home. You've got a business there that's just dying for you to take over and run and have a life like them." And I said, "Well, I want to be a chef. I want to do this." He said, "But David," and I remember him doing it so he just slapped his hand like that. He went, "It's a family business. Why don't you want to work in the family business?
Yeah.
If I had a family business like you've got, I wouldn't be sat here now. And I wouldn't care if it was a butcher's, electricians, builders, a fish and chip shop. I'd be proud of working with my family. So then he just said, basically, F off, go think about it. And I think that's what just made the clock start ticking.
Are you sure he didn't want to like sack you something? And he's just thinking everything falls into place? Because if you think about it, I want to dump this guy off. Oh, his parents are here. Oh, they can take him home.
I never thought about that, really.
Yeah, you see, I'm glad I made that obvious. Yeah,
that's changed my life completely, you saying that still.
You know, this is a monumental moment.
So basically, we'd said goodbye to me in New York. I had 2 Transatlantic trips to go. And, you know, I was still with Leslie then. Wherever I was in the world, I could get a phone to work. She had a calendar of where I was, and wherever I was, didn't matter if it was in some South Pacific island, I could get hold of her. I even phoned her one day from the ship on the satellite. Cost me a fortune, but if I said I'd phone her, I'd phone her.
Yeah, I bet she got like the crappiest sleep ever that year.
Yes, she did. Anyway, I did 2 more Transatlantics. That's New York to Southampton, and I just went. I went to Chef. I said, Chef, I'm going to go home. And he just looked at me and said, good decision, David. You'll enjoy it. Good decision.
How long was the transatlantic trip then?
5 days. 5 days, 1 day, 5 days. So 11 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was roughly a month.
Yeah, month. Okay. And I just made my mind up, went home. And I can honestly say it's the best decision I've ever made. Mm-hmm. And I've never looked back and missed that.
What was it like coming back and working with your dad initially, though, like in your mum and dad?
Well, it was tough, but you know, I came back and said, "Look, this is the way it's got to be." But unfortunately, my dad only survived about 1.5 years after that. He actually went in for a bypass. He'd had a couple of strokes, a couple of heart attacks before that he didn't know about. He was such a strong man, and he needed a triple bypass. And he went in for a bypass. And to this day, I remember him leaving. And it was a Saturday lunchtime. And he went in for the operation on the Friday. And I remember my brother Steve, who was running the shops in Heslington and Fulford, coming to see me and said, David, it's not gone very well for Dad. I said, what do you mean? He said, unfortunately, he's had a stroke on the table. And that was basically it still, really. He was in a coma for about 4 months. And then my mum rang after 4 months and said, your dad's just rung. He wants a bacon sandwich.
Oh, okay.
So he woke up and the first thing he wanted was a bacon sandwich.
What a guy.
But we visited him every day in Leeds Hospital, twice a day some days, because he was such a precious man to us, really. And it was a hard time for us. But he was never the same again, because obviously he was this real strong, charismatic man that well known in York. You know, he used to play. Any golfers out there, he was a member of Ganton, Fulford, and Motown, and he played all 3 every week.
Okay. Do you think in some ways, if he was maybe feeling a bit under the weather or a bit tired, and he had heart attacks that he didn't know about?
Yes.
Do you think that was maybe some of his motivation in trying to get you back in some ways? Like, without him instinctively knowing, he maybe had a feeling like he was getting older.
I don't think so. I think Dad possibly thought he was indestructible.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like we all do,
I don't know.
Yeah.
No, I think he was glad I was back, but I don't think he had any pressure on me coming back.
So essentially, you were straight in the business then after that.
Yeah. So then Steve, my brother, big influence in my life, almost took over from Dad. Really, he was the person I lent on. So Steve had a similar career. He was in music business. He was a road engineer, working for Georgie Fame and Alan Price back in the day, as they say.
I don't know who they are.
Yeah, I know. That's
showing my age, sorry.
Well, Google them. And he worked with quite a few other people.
Yeah.
And he'd been working in London, got tired of working in London, came and started running the business with Dad. And then obviously I came back, and then Dad was no longer about. Fortunately, Dad died about 1.5 years after his operation, but it was actually, he only had one kidney. He had an infection in his kidney when he was younger, and he actually had one kidney. It was his kidneys that failed in the end. So a real sad time. And so, he wasn't there. There was Mum still around, obviously big influence, but Steve became my sort of guiding light, really.
How old were you when your dad died?
I was 25.
What was that like? Like looking back on that.
Tough.
Yeah.
It's tough, isn't it? Because 64 is no age, is it? You know, I'm 58 next month. Makes you think a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, too young, really.
Yeah.
The great thing about him and Steve had been back about a good 8-10 years, I think, and they used to go golfing. They used to go out a lot together. They used to go.
So he got a bit of a.
He had a great time. He had a great time with Dad.
Yeah.
And I was getting ready for that time.
Yeah, it's
and
weird.
I never got that time with him.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because like your dad growing up is very different to your dad when you are a grown up.
Yeah.
And like I said this to my brother recently, like spending time with my dad in my 30s is different to when he's telling you off all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can see how you sort of miss something there.
Yeah. So Steve, ran the shops at Fulford and Hessington, and I was given Haxby, which is the shop we've got now, and. That I was sort of in the deep end, but at least I'd had time before, because I used to work as a teenager now and again for my Steve in his Hessington shop, which was the original shop Dad bought.
What were you like, in the early days then? What were your sort of like, your biggest struggles, would you say? Like, you've just took over...
Well, because my age, getting respect because of my age.
Yeah.
But because I'd done the work I had before, like the QE2, and I could talk about the chefing in Switzerland, I had a bit of credibility.
Yeah.
But it was the age gap of working with these people that were maybe 10 years older than me.
How long did it sort of take for that to sort of even out? Obviously, you have to get rid of some people. Other people fall into line. How long would you say that?
About 5 years ago.
Okay. 5 years ago.
I've always been a softie, I suppose.
Yeah.
And that took a time. But it took a good 2 or 3 years to get people to respect me and to work with me. But I'm a great believer in your staff. If you can't respect your staff, then they won't respect you. So you've got to respect your staff first, and they will respect you infinitely. That's what I believe in.
And there was your dad had 7 shops, and
he did.
Where were they again?
They were in York.
So some in York, and then this one in Haxby.
In Haxby. And they were all called fish bars.
Fish bars.
So it would be Heslington Road Fish Bar, Haxby Fish Bar.
So this wasn't called Miller's then?
No, it was called Haxby Fish Bar, yeah.
Oh, right. I think I prefer Miller's.
Yeah, so how it started was the shops. There was if anyone's ever been to Miller's, we've got 2 units, and the one next door to it is where the pizza place is now, Pizza Box, and that was the original fish shop, and they bought that in 68.
Okay.
And that has been a fish shop for many, many years. And going back to fish shops, in my village alone, there was 4 fish shops in its heyday. And they said there was around 35,000 shops. Yeah. They used to be just out of barns or whatever, people cooking in pots. Amazing, really. Anyway, so then he bought where the shop is now in 71, and it was a residential place, and then he turned it into the fish shop in 71, and that was brand new design, and that's how that started.
In 1971?
1971.
Is that when you put the Dutch range in then?
No,
that was after when
I put the Dutch range in. So I'd come back from the QE2. I'd been home for about 2 years. Let me get these figures right.
Yeah.
Nick was 1. And Steve was the first. He needed a refit. His range was gone. So we had a haddock range. Terry Haddock, who's no longer with us, but he was a range manufacturer in Leeds. And we had a haddock range, and so did Steve at Fulford. And also at Hessington Road. Hessington Road was a little shop and needed a revamp. And those that have met Bill Shaw, he said that he could come in, refit your shop, and you could take your takings up.
Mm-hmm. Just to confirm, Bill Shaw was from Florigo.
Florigo then, yes. He was with Florigo originally, yeah. Anyway, so we'd been to see Gene Davison at Busy Lizzie's, and there was various other people that had shops, and we decided to go with it. So Steve was the first one to do it, so he put a range in, and they came in, and that's when all fish and chips was a bit DIY, weren't they? You know what they were like, they were a bit all over the place. He came in, put a suspended ceiling, lighted menu in, cladded walls, Altro flooring, range in. Brand new shop. Wow, this is amazing. And of course, people had never seen anything like that before. The closest to that would be McDonald's. Nothing like that was really going on. So of course, takings went up. So we said, right, we're going to do it at Haxby. So then I had a 5-pan haddock range, 4-pan haddock range, sorry, and I went to a 7-pan Florigo range, Dutch range, yeah. 3 fish pans,
and then the rest round pans.
Yeah. So 4 round pans for chips, and 2 and 3 that. So off we went, and that's lasted me 30 years. Or did last me 30 years?
Well, yeah, I remember it. And
Do you remember it?
Yeah, I remember it on its last legs.
I mean, it was a smoking Joe when it finished. I mean, I could nobody would service it anymore.
Do you think in some ways...
And I had to use a hammer to get it going some days.
Because when I met you towards the end of the life of that, I remember coming in and I was like, mate, you've got to bin this off. And you're like, no, what's wrong with it? It's great. And I remember you had so many welds at the bottom of that pan that when you'd go to skim it, it was like going over train tracks. Like, it's great. And I wonder if, like, do you look back on it that you still, when you saw it, you still saw it as the range that went in some ways? Like,
but I did. But I also thought at the time when all that was going on, that I was actually getting out of it.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Which we'll go on to short.
The next person that was coming into that shop would be putting a new range in.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to spend in that.
No,
so I remember doing that range, and I remember getting the refit in, and my refit was something like 80 grand. This is 30 years ago. This is the whole thing done. And I remember all my mates going, "You're crazy, David. You're absolutely crazy." I was taking about 2.5, 3 grand a week, and then we did the refit, and we were taking 5, 6.
That's 30 years ago. It's decent. Yeah,
it's good. Yeah, it was good.
And it's takeaway only then, wasn't it?
Takeaway only, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So when did you sort of like introduce the seating? Because when I came, I think there was seating.
Yeah, there was seating, but it was a bit just like, there's some seats there, grab your food, and please don't bother us. Please don't bother us.
Please, come on, I've got a job to do. What do you want? You've got your food. Like,
what do you mean you got the heating on? I'd just rather you wait and go.
What do you mean you want a chair? Yeah, I can imagine.
Somebody go, if you must. God almighty. God. Can you catch?
So what did you say, looking from like now backwards, like what would you say is different for you now, or even in the industry today, than what it was for your dad's time, do you think?
I think shops in the heyday, if they were classed as a good fish and chip shop, good chippy, whatever you call them in the UK, if they were good fish and chips, you could get away with pretty much anything.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about customer service.
Yeah.
As long as your fish and chips were good, you could get away with whatever. I remember Mrs. Walker, who had the original shop, she used to fry fish and chips on a coal range with a woodbine.
God.
That's going back some time. But I think what's changed so much is the perception of customer service, and so it should. I mean, customer service to me is key now. You've got to back it up with a fantastic product. But I say to people, if your customer service is exceptionally good, say you get it wrong, which we all do, they come back in and go, David, and they take you to one side and say, they're almost apologising to you, to telling you that they've got a complaint because they believe in you, giving them great service, and they know it's not the norm. Whereas if you'd give them really bad service and, throwing it at them like they used to do, and no smile, and still chatting to their mates, and then just push it to you, and yet next not even acknowledging you that you're there, you'll never either hear from them, you'll never see them again, or it'll be on TripAdvisor, Google or whatever, and you'll never see them again as well.
Something in some ways that you envy the fact that your parents never would have seen the likes of TripAdvisor and all that. Like, I wonder, that would be a complete shock to someone.
Very much so. Gosh, very unbelievable shock.
Yeah.
And I say to people, when I train, have a look at where I was. If you really want to see my journey, have a look where I was in 2015. That sums my shop up of me.
Yeah.
And they're not good.
Well, there is a big difference from, let's say, if we go back a bit further, so let's say 2013.
Yeah,
and then 2016.
Yeah.
It is almost like, if I always say to you sometimes, like, I feel like there's a gap there, huge gap.
What happened?
Yeah, what happened? And so, explain to people, what sort of happened there.
So, I used to be very, very passionate and run my shop as best as I can. I used to look at the graphs, look at the figures, buy the very best I can. I think that's one thing I've always done, is admired the way I buy my fish and my chips. I looked at my products. And we were sort of coming into a got to the age of 40 and was coming into a different period in my life, and I was looking at life a bit different and investing in property and building a portfolio and looking at business and how can I make this better, and still quite passionate about it. But when I was 41, unfortunately I had a massive fit, And the lead up to that was, for many years, I used to get like pins and needles in my left arm, and it's like a glowing feeling in my head. And I went for some tests before that in my 30s, in sort of 35, 36, and they just said, look, we've done an X-ray on your neck. You've got a stiff neck. I think it's just the nature of the job you do because you're stooped. Your posture's not that great. And you've actually got a slightly narrowed in 5 and 6, so we think it's maybe just a nerval thing kicking off. And I just said, that's fine. I can live with that. So I just carried on with life. And I must say that these feelings and sensations were getting stronger.
Okay.
And my sort of life then was work hard, go out and play hard. So me and Les used to go out Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, finish work, go out, and then go clubbing.
Wow.
And then back to work the next day. And that was relentless. And then we'd have Monday, Tuesday off. And people might have heard me say this, I've started my weekend on a Wednesday this week, and we'll be going out. So my life was like that, working hard and whatever, and I was really into work, and things were going well. Maybe the customer service side still wasn't as good as it was, but the back of house was strong. And I was basically with a friend of mine, group of friends of mine, playing golf in Alnwick for the weekend. And it was a lads trip we did every year, so it was loads of from Scotland, loads from. We used to meet up, have a competition, a few beers, a lot of beers, another game of golf, and then home. And my mate, Chris Johnson, he drove us up, and he wasn't fit enough to drive back the next day, so I said, I'll drive. And he had a brand new BMW, and I said, I'll be okay. So he had a sleep while I was driving home. And I remember ringing Leslie and saying, right, we've just stopped, we're about half an hour away. She says, right, great, I've cooked your Sunday lunch, both of you. Put the Yorkshires in, I'll see you in half an hour. I remember setting off, Chris sort of went back off to sleep, and I got this really big sensation. And something made me pull off the A1 at 70 miles an hour. I saw this turning for North Allerton, and thankfully there was a gap, and I just took it. And that's the last I remember.
Wow.
And then I woke up, and I remember Chris had a hold in my eyes, and he said, God, David, I thought I'd lost you there. And basically what had happened, I'd come off, and we'd come down this slip road that was not a straight one, a curved one. Obviously the car had changed. He said he woke up, and he said, David, and I sort of looked at him, a bit like The Exorcist. I turned my head to him. I was going blue, I was frothing. And then I turned my head across and just stared straight across the gate. David, David, he started pushing me and no reaction. And then obviously I started to fit. And then he realised he was in the car. He was coming to a junction. He got one of these brand new BMWs that didn't have a handbrake on, couldn't stop the car. There was a truck coming towards him. Anyway, he managed to get across the road, get it onto the verge. And then it was just like, what am I going to do? So it was a bit like a comedy thing. He picked the phone up. There was no signal on his phone. He threw that down. And then he remembered that he could see something in the background, a shop. So he remembered running back to the petrol station. That was it, petrol station. Burst into the door, saying, where am I? And everybody looked like it was the Wild West, you know, what's going on? I need an ambulance, you know. Anyway, they got an ambulance, and he ran back to the car. And he just had his car all blacked out down the side, like you do when you've got a BMW, I suppose. But he couldn't see me. And so he says he remembers creeping up to the front and actually peering through the front window just to see, because the last thing he remembered was I was blue and frothing.
So you thought
Thought I'd gone, yeah. And but I was just starting to come around. And the next thing I remember, he was cuddling me, and the ambulance turned up, and they asked me, and I should know this, shouldn't I? They asked me who was the Prime Minister, what day it was, and how old I was. And so I thought, well, what's going on? Can I go home? No, you can't. So they took me to the hospital, put me in a bed. He rang Leslie, of course. There was absolute pandemonium here. She got in a car, was brought up here to see me in the hospital in North Allerton.
What happened to the Yorkshire puddings?
They were just probably left this time. I think so. I'll have to ask her.
I'll ask her that.
Ask her that later. And she said, it was unbelievable, David, because all I could hear was you laughing in the bed at Chris, because Chris was going, what have you done? What have you done to me? I thought you were going to die, and I just thought this was hilarious. And I remember coming up to the bed saying, do you know what, Chris, you should be in bed and he should be coming home with me. And I still really didn't believe I had a fit or anything. Anyway, I was in the hospital that night, and anyone who's got epilepsy or had a fit will know this. When I tried to get out of bed the next day, I couldn't walk, because obviously all your muscles go into spasms, and it's really like tensing it. And of course, I just couldn't walk because every muscle was aching so much. And then I knew.
Did it feel real then?
Yeah. Then I knew, shit, what's happened? So the guy that was actually on duty that day was a paediatrician. And he said, look, I'm going to send you for a CAT scan. And I want you to put you under a bit of stress as well. I want you to go do some like hyperventilation, just see if we can just have a look at your brain monitor. So basically I went to Catterick, back to Catterick, did all these tests. I passed the sort of hyperventilating one. They said the brain waves were normal. And he said, I just think basically you told me about your lifestyle. You've obviously worked too hard, you play too much, you certainly drink too much. And at that time, I think I was probably still smoking. He said, I think you should just need to just clean your act up a bit and just take it easy. He said, we get people from the Catterick Garrison who, work really hard, train really hard, and they can actually go into seizures because their body just goes, do you know what? We're not doing this anymore. And it shuts you down and reboots you. And I just said, great, okay, well, I'll do that. And I got up out the seat and I was stood up and Leslie went, what about the CAT scan? He went, oh, yeah, sorry about that.
Well, like a second thought.
And I just went, oh.
Yeah.
Anyway, I thought, so he started to look at it and I was like, come on, let's go, let's get out of here. Thinking in my head. Anyway, he stopped and started again at the beginning. And that's when I sat down and I went, oh, this doesn't look good. And then he started to look at it and he got his glasses and looked a bit closer and then put it up on a lighted screen. And it was a picture of my brain. And he just basically said, I'm a paediatrician, unfortunately, you're going to have to see a neurologist because you see this mass here, this white mass about the size of a 2p piece. You need to go find out what that is. And basically, the walk to the car park, from the office to the car park, was pretty rough. You first think, it's a tumour, don't you? Mm-hmm. You really think this is...
So is the C word, isn't it?
Yeah. So the upshot was that I went to see a neurologist, and he said, well, you're in remarkable good form. He said, you're still laughing. He said, and anyone that can get off the A1, I think is pretty good when you're having a tonic-clonic fit. I think I've never heard of that before. He said, I'm going to have to take your licence off you. I said, I've already done that. I've read up about it. It's gone. He said, well, we're going to have to send you to Jimmy's. That was in Leeds. So I get sent to Jimmy's.
What is Jimmy's? It sounds like a cat.
It's a hospital. It's a famous hospital, really? Jimmy's, yeah. Okay. St. James's, they call it. Yeah, it's Jimmy's Hospital. Really famous hospital. And anyway, I saw a neurologist there and he said, unfortunately, this is out of my league. You're going to have to see a Dr. Kemeny, world leading guy in brain surgery in Sheffield, the brain unit there. And that's when it really started to get a bit serious. And basically, thankfully, it wasn't cancer or tumour. Mm-hmm. It was what's called an Atrovenous Malformation. And it's basically like a birthmark made up of blood vessels in your brain. And they're usually on the surface of your brain, but unfortunately mine was inside. And it's basically loads of little blood vessels like spaghetti, all knotted up. But what happens is they get aneurysms on them, little bubbles. And obviously the veins are very thin. And if they burst, it's not a good situation. It's either a stroke and you can be paralysed or whatever, or you usually just bleed out. So I had to have an operation. Normally they would just go in, open your head up and take it out, but because mine was deep down, thankfully just at the right time, there was a new thing called gamma knife operation in Sheffield. And basically they go in, they put a skull cap on you with little holes in, 301 beams, 300 holes in this skull cap, they screw it into your thing, you get locked into place, and they push the button, and they zap in gamma radiation. And a physicist plots it all, and I had about seven procedures, and it's like a 3D, and they pinpoint it and zap it all, and that's it. So thankfully that was great, and the lady coming in after me was a lady who'd had a bleed, and she was having the operation stop anymore. And that made me realise, God, how lucky I was. Because I remember she was a librarian, and I kept in touch with her for a little bit, and she could not read or anything, and she was having a bleed. And I don't think she's any longer with us now. She's actually died. Wow. Anyway, I remember waking up the next morning, and he said you're going to have to be on an old phenytoin, which is an old epilepsy drug from the 20s, so really heavy drug, plus some other drugs, so quite a lot of tablets to take. And I remember being in the brain unit, and I walked about, and if anyone's ever been in a brain unit, it's very, very sobering. And there's a lot of people there with drains in their head, people that have been in smashes, people in motorbike accidents, people that have had operations to take tumours out. And there's me with my hair combed, in a shirt, trousers, nothing wrong with me. I remember saying to Mr. Kemeny, I feel a bit of a fraud being in here with all these people in these, these wards, looking terribly ill. And he just said, mark my words, Mr. Miller, you've had major brain surgery yesterday. Let's hope.
So because yours was, let's say you had a bit more, you caught it early.
Yes.
Let's say you'd not had any severe effects like the others.
No.
Although you had the crash, but you just didn't see it as a severe
Didn't see
thing.
it, no. And put it this way, I had additives already, and I was 3% of having a bleed then, and I was around 75% then of having a bleed. So let's roll back time.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be here now.
No.
That's for sure.
So because of that, you sort of then, after that, you sort of thought, stuff it, family, life.
Loved it.
Forget the shot for a
Yeah.
bit. Yeah. Well, not forget. It's probably
No,
a bit
I didn't
strong.
forget the shot, but I think, obviously, I had to take it easy because it did become major surgery because I found that to even compute stuff was really hard. I remember buying a new phone. I had to put 6 numbers in the phone. It took me 8 hours.
Yeah.
I just couldn't. And the people that know me, and the people that know me really well, if I get excited, sometimes my words come out a bit funny, and people go, "What's he just said? What's he just said then?"
But it's just because you
well, my brain,
one's ahead of the other.
yeah. So a typical one would be like, I remember going. I tried to say to somebody, it was bonfire night. I said, and I went fountains night, and what I meant was like a Roman candle, a fountain. Yeah. And I sort of say there were the firework, and sometimes things like that come out. Used to really bother me, but now I just brush it aside now. Like, it doesn't worry me whatsoever. No. So it was hard because I was on these heavy drugs. They made me very sleepy, and that did change my life. And I remember Leslie looking at me one day, and I'm sure, and she did admit to me later in life, she said, "My husband before was vibrant, whatever. Look at him now, he's not with it, and will he always be like this? At least he's alive, but this is so unfair. What's happened? What's happened?" And that doesn't mean it. Why should it be okay for me, not anyone else? I think when you look at your own personal view, you just think about yourselves, don't you? And but thankfully, the drugs started to work, and I became a bit more normal. But what it did say is, I looked at work different. I looked at drinking different. I looked at smoking different, so I stopped smoking. I think I'd already stopped smoking then, or was starting to stop smoking. I looked at how I looked after myself, so I started to bike because I couldn't actually get to work on the car. I biked everywhere.
So the cycling came after you.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I had to get fitter, and then as you know, I grew to love it and went on to do some great things on the bike.
You did a tour in America, didn't you?
I went right across America. Yeah. I did a cycle race in America. 3,020 miles, 7 days, 1 hour. 7 days, 1 hour. I've cycled from London to Paris, all sorts of stuff. And I loved it. I got really into it, got fit. And then it makes you stronger, actually. And I just got a real good buzz out of that. And then I used to go back every 2 years. I used to go in through my thigh, go up with tubes into my brain and check everything was okay. And after 6 years, I got the all clear. And I remember going to see my... 7 years, I think it was. I remember seeing my neurologist, and he said, "David," he said, "good news." He said, "The last scan's really good. It's really clean. It's up to you. Do you want to have a go at coming off the tablets?" I said, "Yeah, I'd love to be able to come off the tablets." So that's what we tried to do. That because of the strength of the tablets, that took 2 years to come off them because you can't just come off them. Because of the radiation, it's also got something going on. That never stops. That radiation in my brain will never stop working, so it's always going to start working. He said, "We've had a real good CAT scan. We've had a real good sort of look and examination of the brain. The good news is that we've not damaged the brain. We've got the scar. There is a scar there, and you're good to go." Because sometimes they can actually damage the brain as well with the radiation. Because it's not instant with radiation. It just keeps growing and growing and growing.
So are you still classed as epileptic then?
Right.
Because you said it's... Okay.
Right, so I came off the tablets, got my licence back.
Oh, you got that back, okay.
And then when the family started to work with me, which we'll get on to, Nick would go, "What happened then, Dad?" And I go, "What do you mean?" He said, "What just happened then? Nothing, why?" You sure? Yeah, no, nothing. And of course,
It did.
there was something going on. So Nick started to film me. And he said, what's been going on?
He's never too far away from a camera, is he?
He said, what's been going on? I said, nothing. He said, right, what's that then? And that was last week. That was the week before. And what happens is my eye just flickers a little bit.
Mm-hmm. I've seen it. I've been there, haven't I? Yeah.
You have been there. And I might zone out for about 5-6 seconds. And then it's like I've almost had a stroke. And then the face comes back to normal again. So, thankfully, my neurologist was still practicing. This is about 4 years ago. He said, so Leslie just said, David, I can't believe you've not said anything. Do you not remember he said, any signs of anything, you need to get in touch just in case there's a secondary. And that could be the tumour. That could be because of the radiation. And I just went, no, I didn't think about that whatsoever. Anyway, we went for another set of scans and whatever, and thankfully everything's crystal clear. But because of the radiation, it's probably just kicking off a little bit. And there's probably epilepsy trying to break through all the time. So I basically given my licence up. I don't intend to drive again. I take one tablet in the morning, on a night. That's me sorted. And every now and again I get a few little breakthroughs, but I'm not going to harm anybody. I might fall in the pan. I might fall off my bike. I might fall, but, I've got control of it now, and I'm taking a tablet, and I'm more aware that if there's something else goes wrong, I need to be in touch with the neurologist straight away.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So, in 2016, Nick comes back into the business. Comes into the business. He was a musician, was travelling abroad. So, what was that transition like? Explain to us how he decided he wanted to come back into the business.
So, I suppose, really, at that time, I'd be 4 years ago, so I'd be 54, 53, 54, 13 years after my operation. Life was pretty good, but I'd got to 50, possibly fallen out of love with fish and chips, built a nice property portfolio, rent coming in, so nothing too much to worry, still having a good life. As I used to say, these guys used to tell me how to try and run the business on a Sunday lunchtime after we were having roast beef and all that, and a nice bottle of wine. I'd say, look, guys, don't tell me how to run the business when you don't even work in it. I know you know about the business.
It's a fair point, to be fair, though.
But just, you come and work in the business, you tell me anything you like, but don't sit there, around our table. I wouldn't say my table, our table, drinking the wine and that it provides for, and picking fun in it, picking holes in it. And I was getting quite resentful and possibly resentful of the shop, resentful of everything that was going on. Certainly lost my way, certainly lost my passion, certainly lost the mojo, as people say. And it was just a vehicle to make money. I could just go in and take what I needed, go on holiday when I had staff running it, and didn't really care. Wasn't really interested whether we got complaints or not. It was very much got to that stage. I suppose that's on a period of taking your eye off the ball, enjoying yourself, and then knowing you got to go back and going, I don't really want to do that. And I suppose we'd built everything, as I say, around us, and we thought, well, we've got stuff to sell, and maybe it's time to start thinking about retirement. But the year before, we'd had to cancel, 2 or 3 holidays that we'd paid for because staff had let us down or whatever, and that was becoming a bit galling. So the summer of 2015, Nick was at home in the house we'd built at the back. Do you remember the big house we built at the back? And he wasn't touring. And we were trying to get away, and somebody had let us down, and he heard about it, and he said, look, I'll tell you what, I'll come and work with you for a week, and then I'll look after it. You go away with Mum and go enjoy yourself. And that's what happened. And of course, I went away, really enjoyed myself, because Nick was there. I knew somebody was there. I knew somebody from the family was looking after our interests, which is a really good feeling.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got back off holiday, and how's it gone? Oh, great, it's been good. Really good, yeah, really good, yeah. I'll take you for a coffee. And I'm like, how's it gone then? How's it gone? Yeah, it's gone all right, Dad. It's gone all right. He made me a coffee. So while I'm making the coffee, he passed me a bit of paper. He said, just read that. And a lot of people out there will identify with this. And he started to list everything he saw going on in the shop, one by one. And everything was there. And I think sometimes you can put blinkers on, can't you? And because it's just doing 6-7 grand a week, that's enough for me. And not really care too much, and off you go. And that's the state I was in. And he basically highlighted, these staff are doing this. When you're there, it's okay, but they're messing about. The cooking stuff at 8 o'clock, they might cook 20 fish off and still serving them at 9. Giving free stuff away. people are coming, they're not even paying. What's going on, Dad? And he basically said, just don't forget, Dad, that's our family name above the door. At that time, it was called Miller's. Miller's Famous Fish and Chips. He said, it's your name above the door. Are you concerned about that? And this was all in the letter. And then it was the last paragraph that really did it for me. He said, but together, he said, it might sound like a lot, Dad, and it might sound like, how the hell are we going to sort this out? But he said, together, we can sort this. We really can. We can make this business good again. Together, we can do it. Love, Nick. P.S. Here's your last 2 TripAdvisors. And they're not good at all. And I say to people, go back and have a look. Horrendous, really. And I just said, Nick. And it was just almost like somebody punching me. It was like, to be confronted that I'd let it get to that state was horrendous. And to be pointed out by his son that knew nothing about the business at all. But he did, really, because he knew about what it should be. He knew what was right. And I was really humbled. I said, I'm sorry, Nick. You're right. I can't argue with that. And I just didn't know where to go from there. So obviously we went back to work, and he said, well, I'm going to help you. I'm not working at the moment. I'll come and help you. So he started to work in the business with us, and we started to make things in, and he started with customer service front of the house. And things started to improve. Taking started to come up. And people used to say to me in the street, hey, it's great to see your son in there with you. He's turning it around for you. You need to give him a pat on the back. And they were right. It was him that was getting it all going. He was actually motivating him. But at the same time, he was motivating me. He was doing a recording contract in October in Nashville. And he said that it was the turning point. He'd put cameras into the shop, and he said he was playing drums with his phone on, because his phone's never far away from him.
No, of course not.
With the video on of the shop, looking at what we're doing. And he said I kept missing my cues because I was too bothered about what you guys were doing and what they were doing on the front. And it made me realise that maybe I wanted to go back home. So in a way, our lives have almost been the same. We've done our own thing and then eventually come back. And he came back from Nashville and said, I'm going to pack it in. The band on a whole don't feel as though we're maybe getting anywhere, and I think I've got something I can offer here. And my next move would be to move to Nashville, and I don't really want to leave my family. I love England. I love the UK. I love being with my family. I've got my partner. I've got the house. And I'm not ready for that move. So it was a big shock to Leslie, because obviously Leslie's dad was a professional jazz player. Her brother was also a professional drummer, and Nick, that was his career since he was 16. I mean, Nick was. I remember him going on tour at 16, playing in LA in the Whiskey Go Go at 16. He's had a great time out of it, but it was time for him to finish, I suppose. So that was a big thing, and so Leslie said, "Well, if that's what he really wants to do, I'm not going to stop him do that." So basically, he joined the business.
Okay.
And then Leslie got involved. She said, "Well, what am I going to do? You're all at work. I'll come back to work." So I said to her, "Look, I'm going to give you budget. You turn this space out that's the restaurant. Let's do a number on it and see if we can get it going." So that's all that started in the December of 2015. And then turning point was 2 things. Colbecks, who have asked me in 8 years to go down to the Fish and Chip Awards, you say, "David, would you like to come to Fish and Chip?" I don't want to go to that. Who goes to that? What's all that about? Nah, I don't need to do that. Thanks anyway, but no, I'm okay. Anyway, I thought I'll send Nick. So Nick went. I thought you're doing good to have a look at the industry. And those that have never been, if you can get to the awards, it is an amazing event. Absolutely. It blew his mind away. He said, it's unbelievable what it's like there. Fantastic place. He said, there's all these characters there, all these people. We should have a go at this, Dad. And I just went, we've got no chance. No chance, not with what we've got.
So initially, my first question is, why is it that you probably thought of that way? You must have heard about the awards prior to this, and so
like most people do.
Yeah,
you need a brand new shop. You need this. You need that.
Yeah,
you need to be buying this. You need to be doing that.
So you had those preconceptions,
very, very, very bigoted, really. But yes,
again, that's the views that.
But it's word of mouth, isn't it?
Yeah, and then obviously, you then obviously that the year after you enter. For the first time.
Yeah, but when you see these pictures of these shops that enter, they are good shops, aren't they?
Oh, they are.
You look at yours and go,
Yeah, but you always see your own in the worst light.
Yeah, I suppose you do.
You know, even now when you probably go see a
Yeah.
shop, you think, wow, look at
Yeah.
that. And, you know.
So we sent him on that, and that was the start of us like looking at the business, what we're going to do with it. And I sent Nick on the 3-day course at the NFFF as well. Another story I'd just like to say about the NFFF, you know. I said to Nick, don't go on this course, come back telling me how to run the shop. You know, like dads do.
Yeah, of course.
Like dads do. Of course, he went to the shop and he said, Dad, made me another coffee. Dad, you're doing the dry white wrong. I said, Nick, don't tell me how to do the dry white. This is how Dad used to do it. This is how Steve does it. We've done it this all the time this way. Just forget it. And like all of you out there that are listening, you just fill the barrel of water, get a cup full of dry white, lob it in. No timer on, just walk away. And then drain the barrel when you need it.
Yeah.
He said, just read it, Dad.
Yeah, but that's not what men do, is it?
So I read the instructions and just went, oh, God, he's right again.
Right, yeah.
So it just made me look at things different. And that was a turning point. I just said, you know what, Nick? He said, I think we need to approach this completely different. We need to just say, let's strip everything back, start again. And did I mention about the staff, telling the staff that, you know, Nick's right behind me?
Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so when with all this was going over a 6-month period, obviously the staff were seeing big changes going on. There was a bit of ruckus in the shop. And I called a meeting with the staff and said, look, guys, Nick's now officially joined the business. He's a partner in the business with me. I stand 110% on his shoulder. Please don't come to me saying, Nick says this, Nick's changing this, whatever. We need to progress because we're going down. We're not going up. And I said, the only way I can see that happening is a new set of eyes coming in. And I'm with him 100%. So, but what I did do is I said, look, I'm going to thank all of you very much for working for me. Those that have been with me a long time, couldn't have done it without you. I know some of you won't be able to follow this journey we're going to go on, and I thank you. But what I do want you to do, if it's not for you, please leave as quick as you can so we can move on. And it'll be best for all parties. And whether that takes you a week, 2 weeks, a month, 6 months to decide that, there's never going to be any hard feelings. But it is going to change. It's going to change very quickly. So with that in mind, that was that set out. So we basically took the shop and stripped it down. So we got an appraisal done on the shop, a bit like a judging done on the shop, to say we're going to enter the Fish Shop of the Year awards. What do you think? So they turned up one lunchtime, and the appraisal was, with what you've got going on, with the staff, with everything else, you've got no chance. Absolutely no chance. And that was the turning point. So we used the awards as a way to motivate our staff, to get ourselves sorted out, and we gave ourselves a 3-year plan, so this year, to get in the top 60.
Yeah.
And we joined. And as you know, you do your entry form in May, and off it goes. And the top 60 is announced. And the email came through at 11:30, and Nick rang me and said, we made it, Dad, we're in the top 60. And I just went, you're joking, Nick. He said, no, we've done it.
Wow.
Nick filled all the forms in, all the stuff you need to do, and all the stuff we were changing, you know, we was doing. He was looking meticulously at other shops, what everybody else was doing, taking note, learning off other people, talking to lots of people. I tell you who we did meet, though, that was instrumental, another one, Richard Ord. I remember meeting Richard Ord at the Colbeck's exhibition in Newcastle, I think. Or it could have been Harrogate. I can't remember what it was that year. And we bumped into Richard, and Nick's met him at the award. I said, oh, Richard, this is my dad, David. He said, oh, nice to meet you, David, all that. And he said to me, all you need to do is get your food right, get your substance service right, get that form filled in, and you're in the top 60. That's how he said it to me. It sounds easy, but if you look at it like that, that's how easy it is. Get your forms filled out, make sure your product's bang on, and get that customer service the very best it can be. You've got a chance. And it's as simple as that. Yeah. And that's what we took. So then we got to the top 60. Then we got to the top 20. And then it was a head-to-head with 149 in Durham. Durham, is it they are? I think they are. Yeah, Durham, yeah. And we went head-to-head with them. And the judge came, and we had an old shop, no refit, 30-euro range, not high efficiency. We're MSC certified. What we were, though, was a member of the NFFF, quality award holder. Have been since it very started with Sea Fish in 1997, so very proud of that. And, you know, we thought we had a chance. Anyway, we got through to the audit. He looked at it. He talked to Nick, talked to me. Looked at the shop, looked at the product. Off he went. Then went to do his other judging wherever else. And then it was announced. We got to the top 10.
Wow.
And that was just mind-blowing.
So you must have been pretty surprised by all that.
Yeah. What, in that short time?
Yeah.
To strip something back as bad as that and rebuild it, yeah.
What was it like to do your presentation that morning, like for the first time ever?
Well, very nerve-wracking. But I think we do have a chemistry, me and Nick, and we do work well together. And I'm I've never been frightened to talk, and I'm quite confident in that way. And I think what we were talking about with our presentation that year was basically, choose us because we've got a great message out here. We can say to shops that believe it's all the things that they believe it is, that you can be an old shop with a cracked tile, with something that maybe not spot on, maybe staff that aren't in the brand new uniforms, but at least to serve you well. You're part of the community. You can do it. You can make it work. And I think that's what... So we were speaking really from the heart. It was just about my journey. And I was very honest about myself. But, we needed an hour, not just 10 minutes. So to get all that in is difficult. But I remember doing the presentation. If you remember that year, we were at another hotel across from Big Ben, weren't we?
Yeah.
And I remember going to meet Leslie. There's a little pub opposite the House of Commons. I remember meeting Leslie in there. And I just wanted to get on the table and do the presentation to all the pub again because I was that excited. Yeah.
I think this is the thing, and that year you came third. And you think, considering you guys just thought top 60, we'd be dead happy with that. And I think,
It was mind-blowing.
So, were you gutted? Were you like, no, we've got to enter again straight away? Was it a bit of everything?
Right,
or?
so if we go back to Norway... Because when I went to Norway, Nick said, you go to Norway, Dad, go and enjoy it. I went to Norway, and I believe when I met all the other top shops that we had a chance. Because you actually realise you're on a level playing field and you've all got a story to tell.
Yeah.
I remember ringing Nick saying, our shop won't cope with this. We need to get a refit done. If we're going to go for this, I believe we've got a chance. Now, please don't think I'm doing that as though I'm big-headed or whatever. But you've got to believe, haven't you?
Yeah.
If you're going to go for something, you've got to believe. And I said, if we do any good, this shop isn't going to cope. So that's when we pressed the button and had a bit of a mini refit.
But also the refit was the fact that I think it was the confidence that you had at the fact that Nick was now in the business.
Yeah.
And if he didn't come into the business, let's be honest, he'd be retired now, wouldn't you? So why would you fix it up?
I remember that winter, we'd had one of those Christmas where you get a full Christmas. Christmas Eve was on the Sunday, yeah? And we were doing 10 grand a week. And that was just in the space of 8 months. It was like,
Yeah.
And if we do any more, we won't be able to cope.
No, exactly. Yeah.
So that's what happened.
There's all these tricks you can do to get more throughput, but you'll always hit a wall
got
somewhere.
to be the food.
Yeah.
And what did people say? They said the customer service is outstanding. And people started to talk about it.
Yeah. So then...
So sorry, what was the original question? Sorry, Stel.
I think it was just essentially like, when you left, like, was it like, were you gutted?
So of course we were third. Burton Road was second. Kingfisher won. I remember just Kingfisher were about us. I remember Craig and Nicky getting up. Craig was in absolute floods of tears. And I was clapping. I was happy. But I was also a little bit like, well, maybe next year, But I remember sitting on the bed looking out at Big Ben from where our hotel was that year. And Leslie just put a hand on my shoulder and said, David, we weren't ready, don't you? And I went, yeah. And I literally said, thank God we didn't win it because we'd have made an absolute of it. We really would.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have been able to handle it. So
if we fast forward a year to the day almost, you then win. Because we don't need to go through the whole process again because we know that you did that.
We did.
So you then win. Yeah. And you do a great presentation, obviously. You must have been the best on the day, clearly.
Yeah.
What do you think changed? Forget the refit for a minute, because that was done for lots of other reasons. But what do you think changed in you guys as people to go back the year after? Was it more confidence? Was it knowing the awards a bit more?
Knowing the awards a bit more confident.
Knowing what the judges wanted.
And just trying to think a bit more out of the box and how can we make our shop better and how can we make it worthy of being Fish Shop of the Year.
Would you say you also probably maybe got rid of some of those nerves, had a bit more confidence to
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, without a doubt.
Another year under your belt.
It's made me super confident. It's given me such a platform that, me and Nick have talked loads of things now. We talk a lot of business things and whatever. we don't even have scripts now. We just get up and look at each other and go.
Yeah. And it's a far cry for, let's say, 5 years ago when your opinion of the awards might have been derogatory as such.
Yeah.
Like, like, oh, we can never win that. It's for big shops or
Yeah,
whatever
yeah,
or whatever.
yeah,
And,
yeah.
so I think that's important, that sort of, that curve, that full circle almost.
Absolutely.
Like, yeah.
So, and I think that's good to hear it from somebody who was maybe a bit of a grump.
Yeah.
To actually say, well, and I don't mind telling people, we went from a shop doing 6-7 grand a week to 10. Now we're doing double that. What more? What better advert for the awards is that? Even if it's a selfish monetary thing.
Yeah, do it.
God, it's a fantastic thing. It really is.
Do you see yourself entering again? Any of the other awards?
Right. So my thoughts on that. We had a year off. We might enter some Yorkshire Awards this year, because that year we had a hell of a year. We got Taste of England, silver in Taste of England, up against Luckland Park, Howell Jones, 2-star Michelin restaurant, and Penrith Grange, that's a 7 Rosette restaurant, and we turn up with fish and chips at £6.70, and we got silver in that. And so we're going to have another go at some regional stuff.
Yeah.
But as far as the Fish and Chip Shop of the Year awards go, I will never probably enter. Well, I wouldn't enter again.
No.
Now, I can't vouch for Nick if he gets another shop or gets
a
the
niche
urge a
or
bit
whatever.
later.
Yeah, exactly.
But I believe as a winner that you should be there maybe as a bit of a role model for people to look up to try to inspire people, to be there in the background helping people, and let other people have a go. Because I think if everyone keeps turning up every year, the same people just go, do you know what? I'm not bothering with that.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And talking of inspiring people, you're now an NFFF trainer. And how, so you've gone from essentially, again, just to reiterate, 30 years of running this shop, sort of being a bit grumpy, gone through all your phases, and now you're like, well, it's not enough that I'm training my staff, I want to train other people as well. So how do you get there?
So this is really interesting. When I was at catering college, I was taught by a gentleman called Mr. Hayes, who had a massive influence on me. He was a sous chef at the Savoy Hotel, and then got arthritis, couldn't work as hard, and got into actually training. And he was my trainer at York College. And he was superb. And he really inspired me. And I said to him, when I've done my time, I'm going to train. And that's why I was doing the 7063.
Okay.
Because I wanted to do lecturing. And lo and behold, look what I'm doing now. Quite amazing, that, isn't it?
Yeah, so everything takes... Yeah, so you've sort of gravitated to that in this industry.
And that all started because on the top 10 when I went to Norway, I was sat with Dan Harding, who, as you know, is a character in our industry. And he's a trainer at the Federation. And he said to me, David, why don't you... They're looking for trainers. Why don't you give them a ring? And I think they've got an open day in January, February. Why don't you ever go? So I did that, and I was accepted and I worked with Craig Buckley quite a lot on the 3-day courses as the second trainer. Obviously, Craig being the lead trainer, and then worked with other people. Hugh Mantle. I'd like to tell you a story about Hugh Mantle as well later.
Go for it.
And just working with people like that, and started to train, and then obviously realised that I was quite good at it because I think of all the life things I've gone through and the knowledge, all this knowledge started to come out.
Yeah.
But what I loved about it, I learned every time I went there.
Yeah.
Every time I went there, I learned. So, and even to this day now, I've just finished a 3-day course yesterday. I learned something there yesterday off Andrew Moore about the way he drains his fish. That'll be in my shop tomorrow. So I don't do it for that, but I learn all the time. And I just believe that it's just a great thing to do. And I think that I enjoy it so much. I love it with a passion. I love teaching people. I love helping people. I love helping people more than anything now. I love it.
There must be something you dislike about the training school, though.
Yeah.
Because it can't always be.
Okay, 2 things. I have to get up about 5:30 in the morning to get a bus, to go get a train, to get to Leeds for 8:30. That's the one thing I don't like.
Okay.
The other thing I don't like is sometimes if you've got a really busy class, like 8 to 10 people, you might have one person in there that shouldn't really be there, but they sort of can disrupt the whole flow of it, because all they're talking about is like, how much can I get that for? How much can I buy that for? What about this fish? This fish is cheap. Is this any good? And they're looking at you and they're not grasping what you're trying to say to them. You're trying to instill in them that you need to buy quality products. You need to look at your products. Is it good enough for what you're doing? Quality will always prevail. It will always bring that footfall through. If you've got better quality and produce better fish and chips than anybody else around your area, you will prevail. But these people, just all they want to do is for profit. And you know damn well you're going to tell them all this, and then they're going to go out buy the cheapest fish they can, not really bother about it, you know. And sometimes that can interrupt the flow for other people, because you seem to be spending more time on them trying to pacify their questions, which aren't relevant.
Yeah.
But what I've learnt now is to actually pacify them for about 10 minutes, and then I concentrate on the people that want to learn.
Yeah. Well, it is. Yeah, you are trying to train them to do things right, not to buy things cheap. And if they want to buy things cheap, they can just bring a rep, can't they?
Yeah. And you know yourself, you've got to buy quality. Anything to do with catering, anything to do... And the thing is, you can't fool the public these days. You cannot fool the public these days.
And I think also with fish and chips being so transparent, like it's not like Chinese food and Indian food where you can hide it in sauce. Like, you know, I think with fish and chips it's just so transparent. If it doesn't taste right, it don't taste right. If it doesn't look right, it's not right.
Well, it's an art form, isn't it? It's an art. Cooking, getting fish and chips back absolutely spot on is an art form.
Yeah, I think the thing is people don't realise is those volumes to get fish and chips right every time.
Yeah.
And those volumes on a Friday night, you know.
Yeah.
But then also on the flip side, on a Monday lunch when it's quiet, or a Tuesday lunch when it's quiet, making sure that it's just as good as the other days.
Why should somebody suffer just because it's not a Friday tea?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's true.
It's not fair, is it?
It's not at all.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's not Friday.
Yeah.
Come on a Friday, it's good on a Friday, but you just have to bear with us on a Monday. Yeah. That's not good enough.
Or the flip side. Yeah,
it's true.
No, no one wants to be punished because they came in when it was convenient for them.
Yeah, it's not good enough. Yeah.
So, tell me about Humantle.
Okay, so my very worst start days.
Yeah.
I have ultimate respect for Hugh now. But I remember when he came to do my quality award, and again, I was a bit blasé. I've had the quality award and my shop's good enough and whatever.
I was a chef,
I'm okay. And I think Tracy Posket, a judge it the year before, said that this, you know, you need to enter the awards. And I was like, yeah, you know, I've got a good shop. 2 years down the road, really let it go. And Hugh obviously had the judging sheet from the year before and said, no, it wasn't. It was about 2 years. And I remember him saying, I'd like to speak with you. And I'm thinking he's going to say, well, good shop. I can't give the result now. And anyway, thank you very much and thanks for your time. But he absolutely tore a strip off me.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I was a bit put out. I was a bit offended. I was a bit like, well, the hell are you to talk to me like that? And, but he was right.
Yeah.
I had let it go. Yeah, I've let it go, David. It's not an award-winning shop. This is not a quality award. There's bits here that aren't good enough.
You're dragging your heels.
Yeah. And he was damn right.
You've got to give credit to someone like that. I don't know him that well, but you've got to give him credit where he's got the fortitude, let's say, to come up to you and say something like that.
And people that have will hear this story. If Hugh's with me, I will stand up and say, right, Hughes, this is what Hugh did to me. And thank God he did. Because he actually made me get my act together a little bit. Not as much as I am now, but it was the start of the change.
He lit the fire, let's say.
Yeah, let's say that.
Yeah. So...
And I think you've got to be humble. And, you know, I love telling people about the mistakes I've made in my working career, and it makes people laugh. But you've got to make it real, haven't you? And we still make mistakes, but I think the fewer.
The mistakes never go away. You just got to learn from them.
Yeah.
And I think, but there's no sense of that any of this. And I think what I like about this is that you're talking about your failures as much as your successes, and I think that is really important that they go hand in hand. Because I think it's not as easy as what people think, and I think the perception is that it's either unachievable or it's okay for them. Oh, it's all right for them. They're millers, but you weren't always the millers you are today.
Yeah.
You know, and I think just like when we did the podcast with Crispies, you know, they when they go through a 20-year struggle, essentially, you know, year on year, harder and harder and harder, and it's similar here. Yeah, it's different for you because you know the shop was inherited, or you had a bit of training, but you've had different struggles.
Yeah.
So it's not like when people say, "Oh, it's all right for Miller's. They're a powerhouse, or they're a big shop, or I'm not a big shop like Miller's." Well, Miller's wasn't always a big shop. You know?
Well, I'm working more than I've ever worked.
Yeah.
I'm loving it. And what can I say? You know, and I might get emotional here, Stel, but, you know, it doesn't happen very often in life when you get a second chance at something. And to be able to get a second chance to do it right. And you know, it doesn't happen very often. And that's why I've grabbed it with everything I can get a hold of. I'm not letting go yet because I'm loving it. And to get a second chance doesn't happen very often.
But what I would say as a friend, you know, because I often talk to you as a friend, not a supplier, is that don't overdo it.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, you're wiping your eyes now.
I know.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I made you cry. Yeah. It's always me, isn't it?
But I'm enjoying it.
No, I know,
but the shop, you know, we've got a great setup in the shop now, and you know, I'm just a bit like an executive chef now. I walk in, I haven't fried for about a year now. I will fry.
You're chairman.
Yeah. I will fry. But you know, I've got guys that are really good at it. Yeah. They're young. They've got this computer screen that's just like, God, what's all that about?
Yeah.
But they're fabulous. My team's fabulous. You know,
imagine your dad seeing that computer.
Oh, amazing!
Unbelievable. That screen.
I wish he could. You know, but I'm a great believer. He'll be waiting for me somewhere, and he'll be going, "Wow, great
To
job!"
be fair, he'll probably throw something at it, wouldn't it? When it starts, I've seen that thing when it starts beeping off. I'm just like, oh my God, just give me some fish. Yeah.
But it's good, you know. And I've got a great team now. We've got an operations manager, Nick. We've got still Les in the business. But I'm actually getting a bit of time off now, and that's great. So the 4 years have been worth it. But I do know I can't keep going on like that, and I want to put my time into. I'm a director at the NFFF. I'm loving my training. You know, I've been given a job to do at the academy, the training school, and the academy, or whatever we say it is, and to try and help that. And it's good. You know, I'm enjoying it. And
I just want to go back one step because there's a question that I missed out. And what sort of advice did you get when you won? Like, you know, about how to be a winner, like, you know, and then also just before you go, because there's what advice did you get? And then there's also what advice would you give someone else who was about to win in a couple of weeks?
Yeah.
So let's start with what advice did you get?
So as I left the building, I bumped into Richard Ord and Fred Capel. And they both said, "Well done, David. Well deserved. Good on you. Look after that business. Look after it. Because it's such a platform. And if you do it right, it'll just set you up for the rest of your working career." And I said, yeah. I said, I've done that once before. I'm not leaving it. So we made a conscious decision that we would stay at the shop. If anybody had to come and see us, they had to come to the shop. So we didn't go on many trips away and all that. We did a few things that we could do, but we stayed true to the shop because people want to see you. When they come to the shop, they've, you know, these people that come, they literally go, you know, because we're in York, that's great, and we're a bit of a satellite from the tourist city of York, but they literally come in and go, "Why is your chippy better than mine? What is it that makes you number one?" They're almost against you, and you've got to deliver that, haven't you? And I think that's what you know, you're true to the awards. If you can deliver that time and time again, but then it actually gets hold of you.
Yeah.
And it becomes the norm. And you run your shop at that competition level. And I believe that our shop still runs at competition level. There and thereabouts.
Yeah.
And it just becomes the norm. And we still go, that's not competition level. Get that done again. You know, and that's my advice to anybody. Look after it. Stay with it. Nurture it.
So you'd pass on that advice, really?
Yeah, I would, yeah. And I've said it to everybody. Keep your head down. And those that are going into the awards, don't worry about the competition. We never do. We just stick to your game plan. Don't try and copy other people.
It's almost like you build your game plan.
You build your game plan.
And you've got to believe in it.
And believe in it. And go through with it. And if you're lucky enough to win, because, you know, there's 15 judges in there and they've all got a different opinion. But, you know, I know that when the judges do Joe, from the way of being in the process last year, that the true winner always comes to the top.
Yeah.
And I'm a great believer in that. And I just think it's such a platform. And the media you get from it and everything. I mean, we still get people ringing up now, even though we won 2018. You know, we still might be going to Canada next year, me and Nick and Leslie, to do a presentation over there in Canada, in Britain.
British Columbia.
That's it, yeah. That's on the back of that. You know, it's still coming through. we've taken the banner down now. I always believe that, and I believe as well that if you win, that when the new winners come in, you should just go away nice and quiet, let them have their time.
That was one thing you said to me straight away. Like, well, so my experience of you guys in that year, the winning year, let's look at that first, was I remember many times you'd either ring me, Fred, Andrew Crook, and you'd be like, what's your opinion on this? Like, we don't want to look like we're big-headed. How can we make the industry look good here? And I think you always put the industry first. But,
absolutely.
Well, the industry was second to some degree, but the business was first. So,
absolutely.
And then I remember when Crispies won, and I think we was having a drink at the bar before, or is it maybe at the pub with knowing you guys actually?
Yeah.
But I think we're having a drink, and you said, "Stel, I'm not going to be one of those people that try and nick their spotlight." He goes, "I'm just going to gracefully step aside and and be supportive where I can."
Yeah.
And I think I think you have done that.
Yeah. Thank you.
I don't think I was going to say I don't think anybody could say that at any point you've tried to
keep going.
No.
Yeah.
But you've done it very differently. It's like you've just made it, all that effort that you used to put before that might have been nationally has now been focused to locally.
To my community.
Yeah, to your community.
Yeah.
And I think, and I think, to be fair, talking to Kelly and Tim, I think they're going to be exactly the same in a few weeks' time. I think they're going to be stepping aside and clapping for the next people.
Yeah, and I think it's nice that we maybe pioneered that or that way of thinking. And I just think it's a different way of looking at it because it's a fantastic competition. But let them have it.
You can understand how people get...
Let them have it.
But you can also understand how it's difficult for people because you do get used to the hype. You can see it.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
But there's nothing to stop you still being there, still being at the top of your game, still being recognised without stepping on other people's toes.
It's true.
I think that's what we've done,
Yeah, I think so. So, parting questions, because I can't take up all of your day. Who has been either forever or just recently, who has been like an inspiration or influence to you?
Okay. Well, obviously, I've got to say my dad.
Yeah.
And if I could follow in one of his footsteps, then I'm a lucky man. My brother, Steve, he looks after me so much. Then my family. And young Nick, without young Nick, I won't be sat here with you. If he hadn't come in and recognised where we were and looked after it. My wife Leslie, so that's really my sentimental pieces, really. But the other stuff, it's got to be.
It's fine.
It's got to be. I would say a lady that is no longer got a fish shop, but still very influential. Tracy Posket. I met Tracy, as I say, just after she'd won Fish Shop of the Year. She came and did my quality award, and she really sort of influenced me in the way things have gone. I remember she met me, about 5 years ago, and I remember she said to me, "What's happened to you, David? You're not the same man that I remember 2 or 3 years ago. You're really down and whatever." And I just love the way she goes about it, and I think she's a legend. I think what she knows about the industry is second to none. Her customer service skills are just fantastic. We've all heard that story about how she won, that somebody came in as a tramp, didn't they, into the shop, and he was served exactly the same as the next person, just as a human being, and brilliant.
Yeah, honestly, Tracy and Matthew, the way... Well, I only met her when she had with Matthew's business, so with them two together, which was Fish and Chips at 149, so I never knew before when it was called... what did she have before? Pride of Brilliance. Never knew her then.
Yeah.
But the banter in that business, was just so good. You felt like it was nice being there. And I used to go over down then because we supplied them for a little bit of time, and it just felt good. The way they treated customers, they don't care whether you're driving a Ferrari or you turned up in a mobility scooter. They just weren't bothered.
No.
Yeah. So
just good at the job.
Great.
And so she's been quite an influence on me. Then the recent people I've met, obviously Fred Capel, Richard Ord, fabulous operators, fabulous knowledge. But one person who I think always deserves a mention is Andrew Crook. He is just an inspirational guy to me. He always puts the industry before anything else, He never stops. We all know he likes to go out and has a beer, but he's always thinking about how can he improve our industry, look after our industry. and he tirelessly works hard. Also, I'd like to thank Craig Booker for letting me work with him. You know, he's been a great influence, you know, of how we train and whatever. And then there's Chem, my training pal, who we work together, you know, at Packet Bridge, you know.
Chem said, he texted me earlier, and I said I was doing the podcast with you today, and he said, what did he say? Did he say, ask him who he likes more, me, as in me, Stelios, or Jem? And I was like, well, I think it's me, Jem, because he likes to make fun of me for being fat. And he goes, no, I still think he likes me more.
Well, whenever we train, and if I know he's in the next day, I always leave him a little smiley face saying, good morning, Jem.
Oh, that's cute. You've both got like this little side relationship. It's so cute.
I know.
Does Leslie know?
Yeah, she does. Yeah. But I think that's where I'm at, and there's lots of people influenced me over this last 4 or 5 years, but you know, I'd like to just thank the industry itself for embracing me as well, because you know we've just come from nowhere, haven't we? Really?
Yeah, I suppose.
And I'm sure people are going, who are these lot? You know.
I think one of the things that because I've known you guys for a long time, so what I'd always hear when I was out on the road or doing whatever. They'd be like, oh, they just came out of nowhere. And I was like, well, not quite. They've been in the industry for a long time. Yeah, but they've just come out of nowhere. And I was like, yes, in terms of the competition, but in terms of being in the industry, you've been around for a long time.
Yeah.
And I think maybe a lot of people just assume, like we all do, because we don't know a lot, is that they literally just turned up one day, won the awards. And, you know, it wasn't quite like that. It was don't get me wrong, it was remarkably fast.
Yes.
But you did have 30 years behind you as well.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And there's been ups and downs like any business.
Yeah.
And I think what I can recognise and where I love to help people is people that have lost their way, because I've been there and I can relate to it. And I've worked with 2 or 3 shops over this last year, and some have gone on and picked up, and some have gone, do you know what, David? I've realised I need to get out of this. So in a way, I can't lose, because I make them realise that they can either do something or they can get out.
You're better off figuring out early on. If you don't like it, because it gets toxic, gets sick.
But
in any job, by the way. Yeah.
But half the time is actually putting your hand up and going, I need a bit of help here. That's half the battle, isn't it?
It's true. And if you strengthen your network and make friends, and you might actually feel like I do like this job.
It becomes a bit easier, doesn't it?
Of course.
And I think there's no one in the industry like the fish and chip industry where people share so much.
Yeah, it's true.
It's amazing.
I agree.
It's a big family. You upset one of us, you could upset all of us.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's true. We all sort of stick up for each other in that way.
We do,
we?
yeah.
Yeah. So, last thing, and we're done. What would you recommend to everyone in the industry?
I think you've just got to look at where we are in the industry today and open your mind. Look at what you're doing and just make sure that you keep moving forward. Just because you've done it that way all the time, is it right or is it wrong? Have a look at something else. It just might be better. You know, it just might be better, and it might make your shop a little bit better.
Yeah.
And I just think you've always got to have an open mind. What everybody tells you, just don't say, oh, well. Don't ever dismiss things. Listen to what people have got to say and try and take something from it. Always try and be positive with what people say. There's so many shops you say, what does he know, what he's talking about and all that. It might not suit your shop, might not suit your way you're up it, but you just might get something out of it that might help you. So always have your mind open and look at these things and look at what people are doing and go, could I do that? Don't say, well, I can't or I won't. Just say, it might be possible. Yeah. You know?
But David, I want to say thank you for your time today. Happy New Year to everybody, because this is going to be the first episode since the new year. And I want to say to you, take it easy, because you should, and make fun of me less. That should be your New Year's resolution. Yeah.
Well, as soon as this mic goes off, I've got loads to say to you.
I can imagine.
But thank you very much, Stelios.
No, thank you, mate. And,
it's been an honour. Thank you very much.
And we'll see you again in 2 weeks at the awards.
Thank you, mate.